John McKay. And we're very pleased that this initiative has been taken. Wood is as important to us as fish would be to Newfoundland, oil to Alberta, or lobsters and potatoes to Prince Edward Island. Just think the impact on those communities if they lost that resource. Well, wood is our oil. And wood has always sustained this community, as has been mentioned by Al, someone in Korea talked here. Wood has sustained this community since we first began to exploit wood. And even though mills prospered and then failed, and depression came, and mills were torn down, and mills were built up again, somebody would come along and start the cycle again, because the trees were always there. The trees were always there as an enticement for new investment. This is the first time we've seen a situation where the trees are no longer apparently here. I have a question to ask first, and then I've got a little bit of a history lesson here to bring to us. Because tonight, we have to appreciate that we can't just say, well, spilled milk is too bad, commitments have already been made. We can always change. It's never too late to correct a mistake. It's never too late to reverse a bad decision. And it is never too late to develop a new strategy to bring prosperity, once again, back to Miramichi. The easiest thing in the world, and I'm a former politician, mini politician maybe now because you elected me to the hospital board, but the easiest thing in the world is for politicians to blame what is their responsibility on civil servants. And it's the easiest thing for civil servants to blame screw-ups on the politicians. So everybody blames everybody else, and where you really get results is when somebody accepts responsibility. So my question is, who is accepting the responsibility for the mess that we're in as a result of apparently bureaucratic intransigence? My question, and then I've got a little short comment. What is the role of foreign law in the issue of wood availability in the Miramichi? What do they have to say about whether or not wood is made available here? Anyone can answer that? Nobody knows. See, that's the crisis right there. They have control of all of our wood, and we don't even know what they do. Does anybody know what foreign law, what their role is?
I think Hal would have a license, just to answer that question, John, is they're a licensee of around, and forgive me if I'm wrong, guys, numbers, but you guys would know better than me, 600,000? Is that approximately?
Well, Fornable is the licensee, and every time we want to do something, we have to look at the licensee.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
Trevor, you should be at the mic. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I just.
Gilbert, I'm used to you telling me what to do. No, Gilbert, I tried to answer John Kay's question. And what I wanted to do was get the experts to help me out here, because I don't know the exact number. But the licensee and license 3, one of the biggest licenses in the province of Brunswick is Fornable's license. They designate the usage of that license.
Why?
Because they were given that licensee to manage the. You'll have to ask the person that was available for it, and I'm going to tell you, government give it to them.
Good move.
Yep.
Good move. Smart plan.
That's right. That's how it goes. They allow it. So, John, am I helping you out on that question? No one want to take ownership.
Okay, I think you've answered my question.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Now,
One
address how we get on to the next step, because the next step is not just to sit here and lay our hands. Those who don't agree with what we want can wait a second. They can start a second. They can wait till the economy gets to the point where, well, there's really not a viable lumber industry here, and they can say, well, there's nobody using the wood up there, so why don't you let it go to Irving or somewhere else? And don't forget, a lot of this wood that was our wood is gone. Other places, temporarily. But when the horse is out of the barn, you know, possession is 9/10 of the law. So how much chance is there of getting it back? When you got J.D. Irving saying to the minister, well, you know, Mr. Minister, I've got 300 boys down here in St. John using that Miramichi wood now. You're going to come down and tell those boys they're going home now? You're going to do that now to those boys? They're sending wood up to the Miramichi, some kind of a mill, don't even know where it's coming from? Now, those boys don't want to hear that, Mr. Minister. I'm J.D. Irving. So that's an example of what that's reality. That's living a reality. In 2009, there was an agreement reached with UMO Solar to develop an industry here in the Miramichi by the previous cabinet. This was an effort to bring a major industry in here. But this is where much of our trouble seems to originate. Because although they wanted to build a mill that didn't use wood, they wanted a pulp mill so they could tear it down. Instead of going to a nice clean piece of land, they wanted to go and build on one of the most advanced mill sites in the world and tear it down. So part of the deal that time was that they would get the wood allocation for northeastern New Brunswick. Don't need that for solar panels, I don't think. But anyway, wood always used to go to a wood user. This was a new, but that was fine. If they are going to get our wood in exchange for providing 300 high-paying jobs, that's the price you have to pay. But then there was a deal that, in that same deal, which was kept confidential, by the way, that same deal, there was a stipulation that if they didn't build the mill, we would give them, the taxpayers in New Brunswick, $17 million as a going-away present. Plus, we would then assume the responsibility of tearing down, at a cost of many millions of dollars, all of the mills that they had, Acadia and UPM and so on, and taking responsibility of cleaning up the contamination, which should have been the responsibility of the companies that made millions and millions of dollars off that site and not the taxpayers in New Brunswick. In addition to that, if they decided not to build the mill, in addition to the $17 million, they got to keep the wood allocation regardless. So, where do we go? This was an article in the Moncton Times of 2011. I'm going to read it. It says, should a Norwegian company lose its right to provincial crown wood now that a plan to employ hundreds of Miramichi chemical plant is dead? Last spring, UMR casually announced he was putting the brakes on his planned $600 million chemical plant on the old UPM site. And just last week came the revelation that the provincial government now owes one of Norway's largest private companies $11 million. It was beaten down from 17 to 11. And has to take over the non-forestry assets, the old mill, since UMR has no intentions of moving ahead with the project. This was an agreement signed off by the previous government when UMO came to New Brunswick in 2009. But although UMO may be gone, they do remain in one noticeable form. They have a forestry wing known as Cornwall that continues to operate and hold a crown wood license of the old Miramichi timber resources. MLA Bill Fraser says, considering the fact that the company never made good on their promise for job creation in the Miramichi, it is almost sacrilege that UMR continues to harvest Miramichi lumber and turn a profit. I'm just quoting this now. I'll get to the conservative part here in a minute. It's good, too. It's good. I'm disappointed in this company maybe a year ago, they should have let us know what their intention was. And I think it's time for the province to take control here, Mr. Fraser. We need to take back that Crown license right away until they find a proper licensee to come in and continue economic development in the Miramichi. Now this is 2011. What remains to be seen at this stage is whether or not Premier David Alward backs up some of the strong language he had for Humor Solar a little over a year ago when the company said it was putting the project on hold indefinitely. Mr. Alward, at that time the Progressive Conservative leader of the opposition, came to the Miramichi following the news and also called on the province to get tough with the Norwegian firm if it had no intention of creating meaningful jobs in the Miramichi. Quote from Mr. Alward, "If UMAR does not move forward with direct jobs tied to forestry in the Miramichi, that allocation should not stand. It should be there to attract companies that are going to create jobs in the Miramichi," Mr. Alward said at the time. Quote again, "What I can tell you directly is that I believe that wood needs to be fueling and creating jobs in the Miramichi." Now the good news about all of this is both the Liberals and the Conservatives agree on something. The wood should stay here. Both MLA Fraser and Premier Alward had the same position. The wood should stay here, Foreign Low should give up their allocation, and it should be made available. So now we've got an agreement. So now how do we carry it out? It's going to cost money to break that agreement with Foreign Low. That agreement runs until 2022. Isn't that fun? 2022. But you want to count how many years you have to go? We're like Newfoundland that gave away the rights to Churchill Falls. You know, they're counting down the decades till they get it back. Now, it's going to cost money to get that agreement broken. There is a fund with the provincial government for northern economic development. This is the cost for us to buy back our soul, to buy back our resource. It's going to be a bitter pill to swallow, but better to swallow it and put the past behind us than continue in anguish while we gradually see our economy drift away, drip by drip by drip. So my question is, now that we have this agreement between the provincial government, Mr. Alward and Mr. Fraser, surely Mr. Travis and Mr. Fraser can get together and have a common position in the legislature, and let's get on with the House of Senate.